having a child with a disability, your attitude toward it might be something as opposed to somebody that has no connection with a disability. You don't see it as a disability. It is, this is who your person is. This is how you need to manage things so that they are a functioning member of their community and society, that they are happy individuals. And so, yes, it does have a negative connotation to it when you say disability. But once you talk to Allison and realize, oh my gosh, she's a wonderful person. She's got a great smile. She likes to laugh. She's friendly. You don't necessarily concentrate on the disability, but you concentrate on her as a person. And so it would be nice if that was true across, whether you're in a wheelchair, whether you're an amputee, whether you have a mental disability, that you just treat individuals as people.
They just treat me like normal. Sometimes they'll ask me, do you have a disability? And I say yes, but I don't really want to give you my reason why I have a disability, because it's my personal, so that's why I don't like asking that.
I love being Allison's mom. It's fun. It keeps me, I always tell my friends, it's what keeps me young. I mean, I'm constantly on the go with her and constantly having to help her. And people often ask me, you know, because Madison has a more, don't you want your folks living on your own attitude? And I'm going, well, no, I don't mind at all that Allison lives with me. In fact, I can't imagine her not living with me. I don't know what life would be like without Allison in my life.
I was proud of myself, learning new things. I was proud of myself for making new friends. Just proud of being myself.
Hi, welcome to Cutting Class. I'm Mark Meterson, and the clip you just watched was from Disability, the first of 9 short documentary films we'll be talking about today. All of these films were produced, shot, and edited by University of Wisconsin-Madison students as part of a journalism course. The course, J475, is taught by Pat Hastings. I'm the graduate student assistant for the course. Again, the clip you just watched was part of a film called Disability, produced by our first student filmmaker today, Ariana Baldessano. Ari, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
What do you think the audience should take away from that clip from your film?
In that clip in particular, I really wanted people to understand that Allison is way more than just an athlete. She's athletic and she brings athleticism to her team, but beyond her team, she brings so much more to her community as far as being just a very involved and a really caring person within her Madison community.
This was more, this topic was more than just about making a film for you, right?
Correct, yeah. I have a family friend back at home who has Down syndrome, and she is really the reason that I'm involved with the Special Olympics community, and I volunteer with them a lot. So she really has inspired me to be the best person I could possibly be, and she's been a really big part of my life. So to create this documentary for her in particular, I dedicated it to her. It's just a really special thing to have between the two of us.
As journalists and filmmakers, we're taught to be careful not to get too close to our subjects in our stories. At any point, did you feel like you were maybe getting too close to Allison and her mother, and did that become a problem for you?
Well, initially, I had planned on doing the documentary on Allison before I found out I was going to be her volleyball coach for Special Olympics Unified Volleyball. So when I found out that we were going to be on the same team, I was really excited, and I kind of explained to her, like, hey, I'm going to be your coach, I'm going to be your friend, but when we're talking on the camera, we're going to have more of a professional relationship, and you can trust me completely with that. We can take breaks and we can have fun, but there's just a different dynamic that's going to happen with the camera, and I wanted to be very transparent with her with that so that she was able to prepare herself for me maybe acting a little differently than what she's used to.
Your film definitely tells the story of Allison and of her mom, especially of her mom and her work with Allison. What do you think is the story that you really want audiences to take away from it, though, more than just the story of Allison and her mom?
Well, just in general, the way people talk about having a disability or people with disabilities is that it's something that holds them back and prevents them from being who they are, and is just something that they have to overcome. And with this documentary, I wanted to show that in a disability itself, there's so much ability and so much that people who may have different types of disabilities are able to do and excel at and be so great at, and really just add to their communities. So I really wanted to drive that home with this.
All right. Great job on the film. I appreciate that. That was really well done. And thank you for talking about it today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Sure. Now let's take a look at a clip from our next student film. It's called A Place to Be Proud and was produced by Christopher Leuenberg.
Being able to go out to a bar where you can see people who are similar to you and have your identity validated is just like not a given. Going to a bar is not like really safe for like queer people, because it's more of like you are like a spectacle within that space.
I was ending up feeling awful at the end of any night that I would go out.
The fourth dude that like tries to come up behind you to dance with you, it's like, fuck off.
It's almost every single night.
Experiences of like kissing a girl and like having men like recording it, which is like really gross.
I didn't want to put up with bullshit, and I wasn't gonna let someone like poke his boner into my body several times. You know, security gets involved, it's really awkward, people are shouting at each other, it's just this hostile environment.
I feel like sometimes I just get like very frustrated that like I don't have a space that I can go to where I will be respected. My name is Callie. I am a soon-to-be graduated senior at UW-Madison, and I am studying social work. I know that I definitely identified as like bi when I first started identifying with like queer identities, but I've come to more generally identify with like queer. I lived with like a bunch of straight girls for like most of my undergrad until this year, and like they would like to go to places like more so like frat parties and like freshman, sophomore year. And like I just wouldn't want to go out because I knew that I wouldn't feel comfortable in those spaces, but also that like I couldn't act out on like feelings that I had towards people that I found attractive, because if I were to like dance with a girl or someone who looked feminine, then that would be like me inadvertently coming out to my friends.
That was a clip from A Place to Be Proud from our next student filmmaker, Chris Leuenberg. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Mark.
Sure. We hear the term safe space thrown around a lot. How would you define safe space?
Yeah, well, a safe space is an intentionally designed space for somebody who identifies as something that's not in the mainstream, be that queer, be that a person of color. Spaces that you might typically think that are safe for normal people, like any bar or even a classroom, may not feel safe for somebody that identity. They can't be who they truly are. Maybe they can't be with the people they want to be or express themselves that they want to be. So these safe spaces really help them really be able to express themselves. It's a place where they don't feel like they're going to be touched, like they're going to be harassed, like they're going to be looked at. And they're very important for that reason.
I know student filmmakers or filmmakers in general always run into some obstacles along the way. Were there some obstacles for you in getting this film made?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to work with Madison's Queer Pressure Collective, which is a group of queer DJs who come together and make these pop-up parties throughout the Madison area, and they are exclusively for people who identify as queer. And going into those spaces and filming in them was very difficult, specifically because these are people of marginalized identities who maybe not be out to all of their friends or even their family. So knowing that coming into a safe space and filming, we needed to make sure that we got consent from people. So our solution was to have them put on a sticker at the door, and if they had that sticker, it meant we don't want to be filmed for whatever reason, so make sure to avoid us or edit us out of your film.
Having said that there were people that don't want to be a part of this, did you have any trouble finding people who would be willing to be interviewed on camera for your film?
Yeah, the actual first person, my kind of main subject for this film, Callie, who we saw on camera just a little bit ago, she is actually not out to all of her family, and she kind of wanted to take this opportunity to kind of become more comfortable with her queer identity, kind of play with that a little bit before she felt comfortable to kind of take that public and bring that to her family. So that being said, you know, we did kind of run into some difficulties with that.
What do you hope viewers are going to take away from this? Is it about a better understanding of queerness? Is it about a better understanding of safe spaces?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I want people to understand is that being able to have a place where you feel at home, where you feel welcomed, is not a given. You may be out enjoying yourself, having a great night, but there is somebody out there who is not having that great night. And having that privilege of being able to enjoy yourself is something that matters to a lot of people. And those safe spaces that allow those people to experience those things are very important.
Chris, good job on the film. Good job getting it made. I enjoyed it. Thanks for being here and talking about it.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Sure. So our next film is about an icon on the Madison campus that you may not actually know about. Take a look at Chimes Will Go On.
This is C and that's B flat, right?
Yes.
That was the first time. I'd never touched a carillon before that. I just understand the music. I think I played probably a whole 4 hours worth if you break it down like that. About twice a month I can come and visit. So Lyle and I met through the World of Organists here in Madison. We were at a concert at Overture Hall, and afterwards they had a reception, and a friend of both of ours, Peter Johnson, knew that I wanted to meet Lyle, and he said, well, Lyle's standing over here, let's go and meet him. And I said, okay. See, too soft there. Say that most of the students don't know that there's somebody actually playing it. They all think that it's a recording or that there's a computer system playing it or something, and I say, well, no, Lyle is up here.
The carillon is not an instrument for you to come out on stage and have, the people standing ovations and the roar of the crowd, and as an instrument, it's a solitary activity. Also, I played in band in high school and college, and realized I never really liked playing in ensembles. I really like playing solo instruments. But I do it for the sake of the music itself. I play it because it pleases me to interpret the music as best I can.
The carillon is definitely a landmark. I remember coming to a tour sometime when
That was from Chimes Will Go On by our next student film producer, Chow-Yen Jung. Chow-Yen, welcome.
Thank you.
Now I know that one of the carillon players said in the film that a lot of people don't even know that there is a human inside the tower playing the carillon. How did you first discover that somebody was playing it, and what made you decide to make that your film?
Yeah, initially I was just curious about this because of the classes I often pass the observatory drive, and I often hear the chimes coming from that tower. So I'm wondering, is that recorded music or is it played through the computer system, or is really someone playing that? And many of my friends ask me the same question. So since I took this class, so I got the opportunity to discover the truth. So I walk in the tower, and then I met the carillionaire Lyle and Jared. Yeah.
I know you told me in class that you had actually shot a fictional film as part of another class, but it was a group project. Were you a little nervous about making a documentary film and producing it by yourself?
Yeah, to be honest, at first I really felt a little bit worried about it. That fictional film was for a communication arts class. Even though that time we were a team of 3, I still feel a little bit difficult sometimes, let alone this time I have to create a documentary by myself. I got to do all the things from contacting the people, interviewing, filming, and editing. But when I complete all those things step by step, I realized I can do this by myself. So, yeah.
So having done it for the first time by yourself, did you run into any problems along the way, either with equipment or setting up appointments or anything?
Oh, Yeah, of course. On the first day of filming, that was also the first time I met the Carabiner Lyle, and I set up all the gears, and Mr. Lyle was also ready, but I just realized my SD card was, had no space. That was a disaster. I apologized again and again. But fortunately, Lyle was so nice, and we just rescheduled another filming day, so we made it happen still. Yeah, but this really taught me a lesson that definitely check all your gears before filming, so I will never let this happen again.
So you also told me that before you started at UW, you actually weren't very comfortable with technology. You could move a mouse for a computer, but that was about as far as it went. So tell me about what you learned, and did you become more comfortable in the process of making and editing the film?
Yeah, before I thought I was not a technology person, because I thought that sitting in front of the computer and moving around the mouse, just not my thing. But when I actually started doing this, I felt like, yeah, I can do this, and gradually get familiar with all the stuff, I feel more and more comfortable. And after I'm done with all my stuff, I mean, my documentary, a little bit proud of myself.
Well, you should be. It was a great film, and I actually learned from it as well that there is somebody in there operating that, and when you walk by and hear those chimes, there's somebody behind that.
Good
Great
to hear
job.
that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Our next film is about a feeling. Take a look at Annie Boris's film, Happiness.
75 years ago, people would go to a therapist to say, I'm having too much fun, I'm having too much sex, I'm having too much pleasure, I'm just having too much happiness in my life, help me, because I'm just pleasure seeking all the time. Whereas now, we all go to our therapist and say, I don't know what's wrong with me, I'm not ever happy, I'm not ever having sex, like I don't enjoy life, I'm not having that pleasure. Now we have a much more individualistic attitude toward happiness, where you can be doing what is expected of you and be dissatisfied, where you can have it all and still have that ennui of why am I not happy? Because it's only now that we sort of start talking about happiness and well-being in this sort of navel-gazing way when we're always thinking about our happiness. And so it's been this interesting paradox as we've talked more about happiness. It seems like we fear that we are having less and less of it. At Harvard, they did this 75-year longitudinal study tracking men and then their wives, and tried to figure out what the secret to happiness and longevity is. Well, the answer wasn't more money, more education, more success. The answer was relationships. And so if you are surrounding yourself with positive relationships and you have good, healthy, stable relationships, you are significantly more likely to be happy. So figuring out who we are and what matters to us, that's much more the secret of happiness around purpose. And even better, if you can figure out who you are and what matters to you, and then be in relationship with other people who share those values and share those goals of making the world a better place, those are the kinds of relationships that help support everybody's purpose and boost community happiness.
That was a short clip from Happiness by our next student filmmaker, Annie Boris. Annie, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, happiness is a pretty broad topic. How did you decide, or why did you decide to tackle this as a storyteller?
Yeah, happiness is a real big topic to undertake because it's so subjective and everyone has different ideas of happiness. But I think we're living in a time when people are very overcome with emotion, politically, and even just in the society we live in. It's a very consumer-based society. And I think taking a moment to sit down and watch a 5-minute documentary about just small moments of happiness, I think that can really relieve some of the stress off of people.
So I know you decided actually on the style for your film first, and then had to sort of seek out a subject or a topic to fit that style. Tell me about that process. Usually it's the other way around. I come up with my topic, and then I try to figure out the style that I'm going to shoot in.
Yeah, so when we were learning all the different documentary types, poetic documentary really stood out to me because it's so much different than anything else you see, whether it's objective or just like a history documentary. And I think the fact that it doesn't really have a narrator, and a lot of it is super subjective in what you're filming and what you're showing. It's from a very different perspective than anything else. And so that really stuck out to me, and eventually I just had to figure out what's an abstract topic that can go along with this abstract way of showing a topic.
So what did you learn about happiness along the way in the process of making it?
Yeah, well, I got to talk to a really great professor here on campus, Christine Whelan, and she specializes in happiness. She studies what makes us happy, and she's a self-help professional. And so she really taught me about the society that we're living in and how we're consuming and how we're trying to put all of our happiness into these materialistic things and trying to get that next promotion or that new raise. And that's not really making any of us happy. It doesn't matter how much money you have, but really who you're surrounding yourself with and who you choose to spend time with, that's where your happiness is gonna lie.
You, I also know you really did not want this film to be about you. You wanted to sort of stay behind the scenes, but along the way you said it really became very personal for you. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I wanted it to be universal moments of happiness, that anyone could watch this and be like, wow, yeah, I really feel that and I connect with that. But along the way, I'm carrying around a camera for 3 months or so, and it really becomes, I see something, I think that's happiness, but someone else might not get that feeling. There's a lot of dogs in this documentary, and I look at a dog and that's just pure joy, but someone else might feel anxiety from that. And so eventually it's just, as the poetic documentary is, it's subjective. And this is moments of happiness from my point of view, and I just hope people can see that and also relate in a way to me.
Well, you did a wonderful job with it. Thank you for talking about it today.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Our next film looks at an organization that's working to turn food waste into meals. Here's a clip from Food Folly.
So the mission really is feeding hungry people, but using resources that are available locally.
This low-income apartment complex is just one of the sites that Healthy Food for All delivers recovered food.
We have a staff of 1.25 people. We have one vehicle, so it's impossible for us to move everything. And so as part of our volunteerism, besides helping us here in the kitchens, repacking food, we've been asking for people with cars and vehicles and time to commit to help us distribute food. Once they've done it once, we have them hooked, because there's no better feeling than walking into a place with good, healthy food options for folks and having people treat you like you're a hero.
It'd be good, and then if you really know how to cook, you go in and add your own stuff to it. That's why we'll be looking forward for this man to come.
Food is all around us. It is an essential part of our lives, but it also takes valuable resources to grow, transport, and store. Along the way, we are wasting tons of food that could go to people in need.
We got all this food waste. To get it to the people that can eat it takes a lot of effort, and that's the problem. We have enough food to feed everybody, but we don't have the way to get it from A to B.
But even the work of a few people can make our food system more efficient and work for everyone.
Really, to me, when you look at the issue of the number of people that we need to feed, having worked on the food system and seeing the amount of waste that is behind the scenes, behind the curtain, it just makes sense. So it's not, to me, it's not innovative. It is more of who is either foolish enough or brave enough to go out on a limb and say, I can prove that this is going to work, right? And I don't need a lot of money to do it, but by God, I'm going to make it happen. And that's what we've done.
That was from Food Folly. The film's producer, Amos Mayberry, joins me now. Amos, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
So I know the topic is food waste, and it sounds sort of obvious what that is, but I know there's more to it than we think. Tell me, what exactly is food waste?
Definitely. So food waste is really any food that does not get eaten. And that could come in many different ways, either food left on in your fridge, which you don't get to eat and gets rotten away, or that can also be food that's not harvested from farms and other producers.
So what made you decide at the beginning of this semester, because I think you had this idea right from the start, what made you decide that food waste was going to be the topic for your film?
Food waste really came out of something that is in every home and in every way, and it also has a large impact on the environment. And so I was really interested in environmental issues, and I just wanted to find a way to bring a movie to an environmental issue.
So you talk to a lot of people, but is there a voice in food waste that you don't think is really represented in food waste?
I think the people that need the food most really don't get a lot of the say, because a lot of the food that people have access to are not necessarily healthy, not necessarily the best food for them, and so people that see food that is being wasted might feel a little I don't know. But anyways, might feel kind of disengaged from the whole food production system. So I really wanted to focus on people that didn't really get the access of that healthy food.
So you were in the TV news class last semester, and I know that issues like this are important to you. Why is it that you think you've decided to sort of focus on social issues or environmental issues when it comes to making a film or a video?
I really wanted to make a film about the environment, just to inform people and see how every little thing that we do, every food we eat, every meal we have has an impact on the environment, how it is so important that everyone realizes that when they're eating their food or living about their daily lives. So I really just wanted to inform people about the issues.
I know this is your last semester. Congratulations on graduating. It's been a pleasure to work with you in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication over these last few semesters.
Thanks a lot.
Now let's take a look at a clip from our next student film about the long and storied history of boxing on the UW-Madison campus. Here's a clip from Revolutionizing the Ring.
Easter Sunday, 1960. For years, there was no punching of any kind allowed on campus. That was the feeling following the death of Charlie Moore. Charlie Moore probably was one of the outstanding boxers. The University of Wisconsin turned out to be the place for intercollegiate boxing.
I love the legacy of the club. I love that even though we haven't been on the club or on campus for that long, we've only been here since 2013. I love that we built from this legacy program that has a huge history, so many national championships. I love the sport. I love that you can not be necessarily the greatest athlete, but still participate. And then if you are in really good shape, you can advance really far. And there's the whole culture of amateurism that you can just start from nothing. Yeah, that's way better. Really work your way through the ranks, and I think that's really cool.
I'm just very surprised that there's a good number of people that seem to stick with it throughout their years as undergrads here. I'm just a little surprised at the great success the club has had, at least in getting numeric people involved and going out for outside competitions.
We're really trying to push it on campus to sort of make ourselves visible to the greater campus. I mean, we're the second largest sports club on campus.
Well, I wanted to kind of leave it as an institution or organization that would, continue to promote the sport, teach kids to enjoy the sport, have fun doing it, and to learn self-defense, a bit of everything, enjoyment and an actual practical skill.
But we have over 150 members and lots of people coming every single week, so it's really cool to sort of see the program build from legacy to being off campus to coming back, and really kind of coming back with a bang.
That was a clip from Revolutionizing the Ring, which was produced, shot, and edited by our next student filmmaker, Noah Rubnitz. Noah, welcome.
Thank you, Mark.
So I know one of your main interviews in the film was Bob Lynch. I don't think we saw him in the clip, but would it be sort of overstating it if I said that Bob is a Madison icon when it comes to boxing in the city?
Yeah, definitely. It was very interesting interviewing him. I asked him if it was okay to call him a historian, and he didn't feel that he was credible enough for that title. But Bob is one of the most interesting individuals here in Madison in terms of the boxing history. I think he's one of the last standing people who were there during that time of the boxing time. And it's so cool talking to him about how he was there practicing with these icons like Charlie Moore, who really made UW athletics what it was back in the 1950s and 60s until boxing was eliminated from the NCAA. It was awesome talking to him about what kind of things were going on back in the day, especially in boxing and especially with head collisions. So it was really great to speak with him.
I know you also interviewed Chandler Davis, and he was in the clip. I think he was by phone or by Skype, because he's in California, returned to California after graduating. Tell me a little bit about Chandler and his role in this and the history of the UW Boxing Club.
Yeah, definitely. So Chandler it was so cool interviewing him because he came to this university expecting there to be multiple boxing clubs. I mean, he comes from Los Angeles, the heart of boxing really in the United States, according to himself. And really, you know, not having that outlet, not having that community here was very hard for him. And so he was like, well, we need to create this club and bring boxing back on campus, a sport that was so important to UW history. And so he took it upon himself to create this club and made it the second biggest club on campus. And he's really proud of everything that he's accomplished, especially with this club. I mean, he started with 2 people. It was Bob and Chandler, and they both combined their brains to really create something that is still thriving on campus.
So you were one of the students in the class who actually already had experience shooting and editing and telling a story through video, but you told me there were some things you learned along the way in doing this process and making this film. Tell me about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so important, especially in editing and storytelling, is to always stay on your toes. You know, you have this image of what you want, right? You have this image of how you want to make this film. And sometimes it doesn't go that way, and sometimes it goes in different directions. So I guess my biggest advice for myself, really, and for others who are going into this documentary field, is to always stay on your toes. You know, there might be a different direction, maybe a better direction that might be more beneficial to your storyline and your plot line. And so I think that that made me a stronger storyteller and a stronger writer and a stronger, you know, journalist, really.
You're working in sports media with UW Athletics. You've got a summer internship with the NFL Network. Congratulations, by the way. What is it about sports media that you think sort of drew you to it and made you want to potentially make that your career once you leave here?
Yeah, definitely. Sports is something I'm so passionate about, and it's something that I want to continue on for my future career. I am an aspiring sports broadcaster, and there's something to be said about sports and humanizing these characters, right? And I think that there's so many untold stories about folks who are on these football teams or on these basketball teams that people don't know. And you know, people look up to these characters, to these athletes, and to hear these stories and to dehumanize these people is just so important to who they are and important to each league, right? And so I think that that's my job as a sports journalist, is to tell these hidden narratives and to show people that these people are just like you, just, you know, on a bigger level, on a bigger scale. And I think that's something that is so important and so amazing about sports.
I know this wasn't your first choice of topic, that the other one sort of got messed up a little bit, so you had to start on this one a little bit late. You hit a lot of obstacles, but you got it done and you made it in time for the deadline. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mark.
You bet. Now let's take a look at a clip from our next student film, which also focuses on history. In retelling history, Lily Hansen looks at part of her own family history.
My name is Neva Wickstrom, and I'm 84 years old.
Julie Wickstrom, 84.
Carol Wickstrom. How old am I? Well, I said I was 85.
No.
82? 95. I'm over 90. Under 90?
87 or 89.
You don't know how old I am. How am I supposed to know?
You're 89.
I'm 89 years old.
And so then we started dating and we got married in about 3 months' time. So we really weren't together very long before we...
Well, unfortunately, divorce is part of growing up. And whether it's separation from the original mate or whether it's togetherness afterwards.
It was, I guess, time for us both to move on. If you don't want to be with the person you're with and be nice to him, then it's time for one of them to leave, isn't it? And one day he came in and I just says, I can't do this anymore and I'm not climbing the mountain and falling down again. When you leave today, you can't come back. He didn't come back.
And then shortly after that, I met my lovely wife, Neva Dorothy Jensen, who is the love of my life, today, tomorrow, and ever.
That was from Retelling History and was produced by our next student filmmaker, Lily Hansen. Lily, welcome.
Hi, Mark. Thank you.
I know this was a very personal story for you. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so as you can see, it's a story of my grandpa on my mom's side, and then my grandma, and then my grandpa's new wife. And growing up, you know, I always kind of felt like the oddball in class when we had to tell stories about our grandparents, and I would always say, you know, I have 3 grandmas and 2 grandpas, and the math never really added up. But, you know, growing up, they all really were influential figures in my life, and I felt like I never was able to reciprocate the feeling of, you know, they knew my life story, but I didn't know theirs. And so I really wanted to learn more about them because they are just really amazing people, as I think everyone can attest to with their grandparents.
And while it is a story about your grandparents, I know from watching it that there are some sort of generational obstacles involved in getting this done and some aging issues in this as well. Talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, when watching this, can relate to it. I mean, not only with like the age issues of growing old. A lot of my, as you can hear in the first part of my clip, my grandpa's 89 years old, and so that is kind of a trying time when you start to forget things and start to kind of feel like you don't have a place in the world anymore. And I really wanted to show that they do. Old people, as funny as they are, they really do have an important impact in the world. But another thing was, like, my 2 grandmas were really strong women. I think a lot of people can see right now this kind of testing of the waters with women being strong and showing, you know, that they can have the same place in society as men do. And my 2 grandmas both had to deal with divorce and death in their life at a time when they had family and they had jobs when women weren't expected to have jobs. And so raising children and kind of being the head of the house at that point kind of shows that, you know, everyone's kind of related and have similar stories as well.
You were sort of the designated family photographer and videographer growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So you certainly had experience not only with your subjects but in shooting and editing film. Along the way in your process here at UW of working toward your degree, what do you think you've learned about visual storytelling that helped you put this film together?
Yeah, like you said, I always was the one on the family vacations who was in charge of filming things, but that film always kind of came out really shaky, or it was me trying to, you know, tell people what was going on, and it was like a crab on the sand of a shore, and people were like, I don't know what this is. And so I think I really learned, you know, how to tell a story, and that the stories that we do tell, they might not to us seem like they're big deals. They might just be, you know, sitting down with your grandparents and hearing about, you know, their life story and how they went to school and a farm. But those stories can have ties to bigger things in society, and they can have an impact on people more than we think, and those stories should be told.
You're one of the students that is graduating at the end of this semester.
Yes.
What do you hope to do once you leave us?
I hope to continue telling stories. I think that at UW-Madison and through the journalism school, I really learned how to tell those stories, whether it is through writing, you know, a personalized piece that ends up in a newspaper, but also what I'm really interested in is videoing stories and showing them in a more visual format that people can really relate to and get to know characters.
Lily, it's been a joy to have you as a student.
Thank you.
Congratulations on graduating.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Next up, with immigrants and immigration front and center in politics today, student filmmaker Philip Rudnitsky focused his lens on Russian immigrants in Madison for his film, Your Local Russian.
The historical practices of the Russians, who are typically almost genetically driven to co-opt, penetrate, gain favor, whatever, which is a typical Russian technique. So we were concerned.
People, especially people like from first generation, of course we are others. Okay, we are different, and we're always going to be different. Like, I really want to integrate into American society. That's why I'm at school. I want to get knowledge. I want to get information. I want to know how to build my future here.
It's a good opportunity for kids just to be good citizens, have good education, use their education, get a good job, just live their lives like normal people. They have much more opportunities here to grow up like better people, have good degree, have good job. Because in Russia, pretty much, you can have a degree, education doesn't count. So you can have a degree, you can be a medical doctor, you can be a professor, and still be living like paycheck to paycheck.
All of the Russian people, that it might just be a couple people that are maybe ruining it for somebody else, or not even that, and just realize that people all over the world are a lot more similar than we think.
I believe people are still the same throughout the world. You just need to learn to understand them.
Though we may be from different countries, we all feel the same emotions and hold similar values. This is why it's important to separate how a government behaves from how its immigrants behave.
That was a brief look at Philip Rudnitsky's film, Your Local Russian. Philip, with one L, not two, sorry about that, joins us now to talk about it. Philip, welcome.
Thank you.
So what was your motivation for choosing Russian immigrants in Madison, Wisconsin as the subject for your film?
Yeah, sure. So I actually grew up in a Russian household. My mom and my grandparents are both refugees from Russia. So that had a huge influence. Then when I moved here, I grew up in a very strong Russian community. So I have two cultures that I'm dealing with, the Russian-American one. Both are very important to me. And so that is why I wanted to make a documentary about what it's like for Russians to live in the U.S.
So what is it you hope that an audience watching your film or who watches your film takes away from it? Is it simply just to get a better understanding of Russians in Madison?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. But also I would say that it's very important for people to understand that how people and governments are portrayed in the news and the media, in this case Russians obviously, but it applies to anyone, is not a reflection of the people themselves. And also a second point would be that we are all very similar. Russians, Americans, we have the same values, same dreams, same aspirations, and that's just something people should really understand.
Like you said, I think Russians in the past have been portrayed as villains in Hollywood and on TV. I think that was fading a little bit, but now with Vladimir Putin in the news, he's sort of our new Russian villain. Are you concerned that that might reflect on Russian immigrants, not just here in Madison, but in the United States?
Sure. Before the documentary, before I started filming it, the answer would have been yes. But after talking to the people that I interviewed, I actually don't think so. I mean, regardless of how their experience has been in America overall, it seems like it's been consistent pre-2016 and after 2016, after the Russian meddling and all that. So surprisingly, no, it hasn't.
So you said you interviewed 4 Russians for the film. It was 3 immigrants, first-time immigrants new to the country, and 1 daughter of a Russian immigrant. Mm-hmm. And you said they all had sort of different opinions about this, and that surprised you as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it definitely surprised me because being a Russian immigrant, I had my own experiences in the U.S., and I thought they would be more similar with the other ones as well. But as I was talking to them, I realized that we were different. I mean, some were a little similar, but some had a much worse experience here. Some had no problems at all, which was very surprising. And it was a tremendous learning opportunity to see that people with the same backgrounds, same language, same place even, had such different experiences living here. So that was fantastic.
Good job on your film. I know you're also graduating. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Now for something a little different. Our next student film looks at an unusual winter event. Pure Adrenaline is about a winter demolition derby in Bloomer, Wisconsin. Here's a clip from the film by Scott Behrens.
It's
definitely a rush.
Adrenaline rush.
More of a thrill.
The action.
I love it. I think it's one of the greatest things ever.
You're free from the real world for that 10-15 minutes.
The adrenaline, the crowd, the noise.
Just the adrenaline rush. You know, you drive down the street, you know, you can't do this stuff. You know, there's a time and a place for it, and here's the time. It's the middle of winter, what do? You know, you come out to Bloomer, Wisconsin and put on a show. My wife thinks I'm insane, and she's trying to figure out why I'm going back to doing this after so long. But she's here, and my son is here to support me.
I think there is a level of danger out there for the drivers. So far this year it's been pretty good. We've had a couple fires, relatively small. However, in the past, there has been some people that have been injured in them.
Yeah, it started on fire. There's just a little bit of fire in the engine there.
You get hit in the driver's door, that'll hurt. Depends like how fast you get hit, where you get hit. You'll feel it in the morning. You'll feel it the next day.
Just one hit over in that last corner, bolted in my back, my arms, hit that steel bar in my cage.
We love it. It's in our blood, and we're probably never going to quit until we can't walk anymore.
The dirt was flying, some parts were flying everywhere.
I've seen, you know, a broken hand or a burnt foot, you know, but I've never seen anybody serious.
That's a brief look at the action from Scott Barron's film Pure Adrenaline. Scott, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sure. So a winter demolition derby, 3 hours north of campus here. 2 questions. First, how did you discover it? Second, what made you decide that this was going to be a good subject for your documentary film?
Sure. Well, I've always been a huge fan of the Jackass movie franchise. And actually, in the very first film, Johnny Knoxville rented a car and he trashed it in a demolition derby. And ever since then, I've just had like a huge interest in demolition derbies, but I've never got the opportunity to go to one. So when I was looking for ideas for a film for this class, I found a demolition derby in Bloomer, Wisconsin. It said it was like the very first winter one ever there. And luckily, the promoters said they'd take me, and I got to go, which was awesome.
So I know you had to overcome a lot of obstacles, let's say, along the way here. It was first you had to drive pretty far north to get this. Second, there was deep snow around that sort of track they had there that we had to trudge through. There was mud and stuff that got on your lens. Talk about how you dealt with some of those issues.
Yeah, and like in fact, I think even in the preview, you could see a frozen mud chunk actually like flew up and like hit the camera lens. And another time, one of those actually hit me in the face, which was super fun. And my chin like actually like tripled in size. But luckily, it was like super cold outside, so my face was kind of numb. The only downside with the cold was on the drive back to Madison, it started snowing, and we were actually in the middle of a blizzard. So it was just kind of like hard to overcome all the elements. But overall, I wouldn't change a thing, and it was super memorable, and I had a really good time.
So unlike the other subjects and films for the class, yours took place on one day and it was one time. So you basically had to get everything you needed to make this film in that one moment. Talk about how you were able to do that and make sure that you had enough that you would be able to tell this story.
Yeah, so in total, 5 people went up there with cameras, including yourself. And if you guys are wondering, Mark is amazing at photography and everything like that, which is why he's the host of the show. So anyway, though, like we had 5 different cameras, like I said. We also had a GoPro in the car. So basically, anything that happened, we were going to capture on film. So we had certain people like focusing on audience reactions. Other people like, you know, would take like part of the chorus. Other people would get like close-ups of the tires spinning. So anything that was going to go down, we were going to capture. And then we had 15 hours of footage, so I got to go back through and kind of pull stuff out. And I honestly could have picked like a ton of more clips other than what I put in. We just had so much great footage, but I had to pick something, so it kind of is what it is.
So I always look for the story behind the story. The story here seems to be basically a bunch of people in the middle of winter sitting around a track with cars crashing into each other. What is sort of the story behind that story?
Yeah, I guess I was like super surprised to find out that basically everybody in the demolition derby either had family or friends there, and this is kind of like what they did to bond. So in a place like Madison, you know, we might all go to a football game. In small towns, they said it themselves, like they don't have a lot going on, so they kind of build cars for fun and then trash them for even more fun. So that's kind of what people do to you know, have a good time.
Well, Scott, I had a lot of fun both shooting and watching your film, so thank you for showing it to us.
Oh, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
Sure. And I want to thank you for watching Cutting Class. If you would like to see Scott's or any of these student-produced films in their entirety, go to our website, uwcuttingclass.wordpress.com. You'll find the full version of these under the Films tab, Spring 2018. You can also learn more about all of our student filmmakers and the class. I want to also thank you for supporting the University of Wisconsin-Madison. This is a perfect example of the excellent work being done by educators and students on this campus. For all of the students and for the instructor, Pat Hastings, I also want to thank Wisconsin Public Television and their crew, as well as our director, Peter Kleppen, for making this show possible. Again, thank you for watching, and on Wisconsin.